It was the dark fog which hung like a brooding black cape that suffocated your senses during the year 536 AD. When days turned to weeks, one feared for the crops, which was a main source of daily nourishment. Rarely had nature shown so swiftly that the end of civilization could happen at any time. No matter your defenses, desires, and wishes, nature seemed to have its own destiny to fulfill. Summer was noticeably cooler in most of the northern hemisphere. You could not see the sun or feel its life-giving rays for weeks at a time. One could not imagine what humans had done to deserve such angry wrath from the sky above. In your village, each person asked the other why heaven created one of the worst years to be alive. All the while, your family worked from dawn until dusk on failing crops, as war and disease were just a breath away. Now, nearing starvation, you ask your fellow townsfolk if the sun will ever return. Hello everyone, my name is Craig, host of Medieval to Modern. We feature fascinating information from civilization's medieval ages in an interesting yet compact manner. After presenting important knowledge about 536 AD, the worst year for humankind, I will offer my opinions on how it influenced modern society. Thank you for joining us. Today, it is common for people to talk about the weather. Usually, it is only an opening comment before we change our topic of conversation. However, for people living in early 536 AD, they were not so fortunate. During this historic period, a horrific weather event caused crop failures, while poor animal health decimated livestock. The nightmare which was unfolding was that the sun had virtually disappeared, its warming rays blocked from reaching millions of people. Even learned members of society at this time had no real answers, just incredulous wonder. Procopius of Caesarea, a prominent scholar, said of this bleak period, start of quote, "The sun gave forth its light without brightness, like the moon, during this whole year," end of quote. Roman statesman Cassiodorus wrote, start of quote, "A winter without storms, a spring without mildness, and a summer without heat," end of quote. During this period in history, most people relied on food from their small farms to sustain their daily nourishment. When sunlight cannot reach Earth in an agricultural society, devastation will surely follow. In 536 AD, religion played an important role in many lives, so these signs from the sky were nothing less than terrifying. Around the world, no one knew the cause of this dark, never-ending nightmare. When the crop failures began, misery soon followed. Most people did not have facilities for storing food, so there were no reserves to rely upon. The fortunate few that had storage depleted their food supplies quickly. Starvation or migration soon became the only choices available. Michael the Syrian, noted medieval author of the Chronicle, wrote the following concerning 536 AD, start of quote, "The sun became dark, and its darkness lasted for 18 months. Each day it shone for about 4 hours, and still this light was only a feeble shadow. Everyone declared that the sun would never recover its full light. The fruits did not ripen, and the wine tasted like sour grapes." End of quote. Around the world, various cultures experienced devastating losses from this unfolding climate catastrophe. The Irish suffered from a lack of bread, which resulted in starvation and famine. In Peru, harsh droughts severely affected the Mochi society and its agricultural supplies. Conflicts such as the Gothic War between the Byzantine Empire and the Ostrogothic Kingdom of Italy, 535 to 554, carried on as the northern hemisphere was shrouded in darkness. It seemed Emperor Justinian I would not even let this climate catastrophe stop his offensive to regain parts of the former Western Roman Empire from these Goths. For nearly 20 years, this conflict would carry on, consuming valuable resources at the worst period of the 6th century. However, the disruptions from this climate cataclysm would later play a role within the future Byzantine Empire. Tribes migrating to escape devastation from the climate cataclysm of 536 AD in their own territories, seen land within the weakened Byzantine Empire as a great opportunity. As a result, large areas of the empire's lands, decimated by plague and inadequate defenses, eventually fell to these invaders. There are very few periods in our planet's history when darkness fell upon a significant area of Earth for months. As a result of the 536 AD climate catastrophe, the period known as the Late Antique Little Ice Age began. This cooling period in the Northern Hemisphere lasted until about 660 AD. So, can we answer today what frightened, annoying people during the year 536 AD could not? Why did this horrifying weather event of 536 AD happen? Whether it originated in Iceland, Krakatoa, or other possible locations does not change the fact that this catastrophic climate event did occur. Without doubt, modern researchers have discovered strong evidence this abnormal climate occurrence brought devastating consequences around the globe. Let us now reveal answers that the unfortunate people of 536 AD could not find. At the time of early 536 AD, a series of major volcanic eruptions began. When a volcanic eruption happens, sulfur, bismuth, and other materials spew high in the atmosphere, forming an aerosol shroud or veil. Then, sunlight is reflected back into space, cooling this planet's temperature. We know that by early March in Constantinople, the residents there noticed darkening skies overhead and cooler temperatures. Soon, an ash cloud spread its veil, causing a summer temperature drop between 1.5 to 2.5 degrees Celsius in Europe, parts of Africa, and parts of Asia. The fine particles from this ash cloud remained high in the atmosphere, suspended by minute turbulence in the air. Temperatures dropped as the sun's rays were blocked, and the rain did not fall, creating droughts and famine. This darkness, which mainly affected the northern hemisphere, lasted for a period of 18 months. As time moved forward, since the natural evaporation process was blocked, rivers began to flood. Crop failures dominated the lands under this darkness, with famine and starvation common throughout many areas. Researchers have stated that 536 AD began the coldest decade in the northern hemisphere for the last 2,000 years. Without a wealth of information available today which survived from 536 AD, science has provided valuable knowledge to help us understand that horrific year. As a result, valuable research is proving dramatic observations quoted from that period have a strong basis in reality. Statements by people like Cassiodorus and Procopius have been vindicated to a large extent thanks to recent scientific advancements. Enter the field of dendrochronology, which is dating events and climate variations in earlier periods by comparative analysis of growth rings in trees and aged wood. Tree ring studies between 536 AD and 547 AD showed a decade of slow growth, whether it be in European oaks, Scandinavian pines, or even trees in northern Siberia. The tree rings examined in that decade indicated poor temperatures and growth environments. Additional scientific proof gives us further valuable insight. Evidence in cores taken from the ice sheets of Greenland and Antarctica show an abnormal cooling event occurred around 536 AD. Large sulfate deposits in the layers of ice core samples that were collected indicated a widespread dust veil existed when climate conditions worsened in 536 AD. These large sulfate deposit levels usually follow major volcanic eruptions, with the temperature drop indicating a volcanic winter after the eruptions occurred. It is estimated these activities cooled temperatures for a decade. The northern hemisphere seemed to be particularly affected by darkness. Medieval Harvard historian Michael McCormick said this about 536 AD, start of quote, "It was the beginning of one of the worst periods to be alive, if not the worst year," end of quote. In the year 640 AD, glacial ice samples showed evidence of atmospheric lead, suggesting that silver mining was happening. This indicated signs of a noticeable upturn with economic activity. In modern times, many would propose the beginning of the 2020 pandemic as the worst year in history. Certainly, it was among the worst. Though when one considers the magnitude of destruction, horror, and unknown disasters, 536 AD was in a league all its own. Which brings us to the time at which Medieval to Modern will give its opinions on how 536 AD, the worst year in history for humankind, still influences modern society. We believe lessons are ageless as well as knowledge, and this event is no exception to that view. Now, let us move forward from medieval times to modern perspectives. In my view, this is an event from the medieval period which resonates today because of the two leading locations where these disastrous volcanic eruptions of 536 AD may have originated. Here is an unusual situation where medieval sources of widespread destruction have a direct connection to our current climate situation. Therefore, let us look at recent information from these two locations to help make us more resourceful than people living in 536 AD. We shall begin with our first suspected location for the 536 volcanic eruption, which is Iceland. In 2018, at a Harvard University workshop, critical information was reported concerning a Swiss glacier studied by leader Michael McCormick and a team of researchers. There, it was revealed that a massive volcanic eruption in Iceland was responsible for the ash clouds across the northern hemisphere during the year 536 AD. Recently, the events which occurred at the Eyjafjallajökull volcano held Western Europe in an ash cloud which would cause widespread disruption. When volcanic activity at this Icelandic location reached its second phase on April 14, 2010, ash covered major areas of the northern European continent. This eruption rated a 4 on the Volcanic Explosivity Index, with an ash plume rising approximately 9 kilometers into the air. When one remembers the Mount St. Helens eruption of 1980, it ranked 5 on the same index. As a result of the Icelandic eruption, it is estimated 20 countries closed their airspace. Similar to 536 AD, agriculture played a major role in the lives of the people that lived in this region near the volcano. With the eruption, water sources were contaminated, and farmers instructed to protect their livestock. Agricultural activities were made difficult in ashfall areas. Before Iceland recently became the likely source of the 536 AD climate event, Krakatoa was a leading candidate. Recently, an increasing number of people indicate this area is unlikely to have been the source of the 536 AD climate event. Nevertheless, there are researchers that say there was a significant tropical volcanic eruption between 535 to 536 AD, whose events could have produced the worst year ever. Even though there is currently a major lack of written evidence from 536 AD of this Krakatoa event, one does not know what the future may uncover. They propose that vast quantities of volcanic ash spewed into the air from a massive Krakatoa eruption, darkening skies and blocking sunlight for a lengthy period of time. The plume from this Indonesian eruption is estimated to have reached over 25 kilometers in height. Temperatures dropped by several degrees, and a loss of rain resulted in devastating droughts. Currently, the Anak Krakatoa has been experiencing increased activity. On December the 22nd, 2018, the result was a horrific tsunami, which killed 437 people, leaving thousands of others homeless. Recently, between February the 3rd and 5th, 2022, a new eruption began at Anak Krakatoa, raising volcanic ash 200 meters into the air. Then, on April the 24th, 2022, this offspring of the mighty Krakatoa volcano erupted, sending a 3-kilometer high ash plume into the air. The alert status for this volcano was raised to the second highest level after the latest eruption, which is level 3. Thank you for supporting us at Medieval to Modern. Please be sure to watch our next weekly episode, or one shown at the end of this video. Also, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and spread the word about this channel so we can create more exciting content. I wish you good tidings as we remember that sharing knowledge has been a noble deed throughout the ages.